Yes, good evening and welcome back to the Football Tribe UG channel. Robert Kesakos is your usual suspect. Welcome back to yet another live broadcast on your favorite football updates channel. It's a pleasure to be back with you all on this beautiful Monday evening slash night on the 1st of December 2025. Today we'll be speaking about all matters football, including Real Madrid, who are making news for supposedly the wrong reasons. Um, because there's a couple of rumors making the rounds regarding Xabi Alonso. Now, I'm often one that is of I'm often one who is too skeptical when it comes to speculations and news and stuff like that. But I also want to believe at the same time that there is no smoke without fire. Usually, especially rumors like this that are not sort of we're not hearing for the first time. You know, they keep coming up. We keep dismissing them, but they keep resurfacing. You know, they keep resurfacing, and it's come to a point where we cannot ignore them any further. Uh, it's only fair that we discuss them for what they are and what the implications could be. You know, because it's not unique to Real Madrid in the sense that it would only be happening to Real Madrid. No, it does happen. It has happened before at different clubs, depending on what team you do pay allegiance to. I think you will agree with me that player power is a thing in dressing rooms. So there seems to be a suggestion that at Real Madrid there's a power play with players being at the tip of it. So we'll be discussing that and a lot more in this broadcast in as far as football is concerned. So, excuse me. Allow us get into the conversation. But before we get into the thick of the conversation, it's Monday night, and usually there's Monday night football. And right now, as we speak, in the Spanish La Liga, Real Vallecano are up against Valencia. That game is still goalless. Bologna are 2 goals down against Cremonese. Jesus Christ. The reason that's why I sort of coughed a little bit is because as part of a forum today, is your name in Russian? You say hi. Hi to you too. Good to have you, all of you. For those of you that are just joining us, my name is Robert Kesakos, and I'm coming to you live from Kampala, Uganda. That's where I'm streaming from. It's 25 minutes past the hour of 11 p.m. East African time. That's the region. And I'm led to believe that in the UK, it should be somewhere around what, 8:25? Let me see, 9, 10. Yeah, around that time, possibly. So it's good to have you all on the channel. Kindly like the broadcast, but also consider subscribing to the channel if you're joining us for the very first time. So we'll get straight into it. With these reports that came from India Kaila News, saying he did say a couple of hours ago in what he dubbed as an exclusive, saying an emergency meeting is on the cards at Real Madrid. He said Real Madrid is facing a critical moment. The board is convening for an emergency meeting this Thursday to discuss the future of Xabi Alonso. You say you're from Russia. How is Moscow? How is St. Petersburg? I think those are the only 2 cities I know in Russia. From my class in history, studying about the Tsars, Russia, and who was it? I've forgotten the other gentleman. Then sources reveal that 4 to 5 senior players are voicing concerns about his tactical approach, claiming it's detrimental to the team's performance. The pressure is mounting, and there is a growing call among these players for Zinedine Zidane to make a return as manager for Real Madrid. Will the board listen to the players, or will they back Alonso? That's the big question in the room. Now, a couple of days ago, about 5 or 6 days ago, almost coming on a week, again, the same outlet did break news that in case Xabi Alonso were to leave Real Madrid, the club could consider bringing back Zinedine Zidane. I have, is it Fury? Is, is it Fury or Fury or Fury? Jesus. Friend, have, have you ever seen Rasputin and Master Splitter in the same room together? I don't even know what that is. I don't even know what that is. So it does appear like a section of Real Madrid's senior players, and by senior, I do not mean in terms of age. I mean in terms of their value to the club or their ranking within the circles of the club. Hello, Pedri, and good to have you back, Pedri. And I hope Pedri can shed for us more light on this. Even though he's not a Real Madrid fan, I know he's a Barcelona fan, but even when you're a Barcelona fan, you care. Maybe you may not care, but you care to know what's going on in the back door of or in the back room of your rival. So Pedri, give us more insight about this. What's really happening at Real Madrid? And there seems to these rumors keep coming that apparently a section of some Real Madrid players, I do not know how many in the extent of it, are not happy with Xabi Alonso. Some have questioned his tactics and some of the rules that he set in and around the team. And like I did say, this is not unique to Real Madrid. These are things that we've seen happen at Manchester United, where players' power, sort of leads the way, and it's gotten managers sacked. It's gotten sort of players begin cocooning on a manager, and start creating all these big, excuse me, and start creating all these sort of facets within the dressing rooms. For those that are against some rules or against the tactics and things like that, and had Real Madrid's performances continued to improve, as had been the trend as the season grew on, perhaps maybe we wouldn't be reading too much into that, but recently, in the last 3 games in the Spanish La Liga, they've drawn 3 consecutive games against Vallecano, against Elche, and just yesterday against Girona. So that has left a lot to ponder about within what's happening within the Real Madrid dressing room. And I did note that on paper, those should be winnable fixtures for a team like Real Madrid that wants to dethrone the reigning champions of La Liga in Barcelona, but also to better their own performances last season. Again, we saw on Saturday, last week, midweek, when they played away to Greece, that game ended in a 4-3 victory. Yes, they were victorious, but again, they were not that impressive, really, beyond the impressiveness of, Kylian Mbappe. So I would really, really be interested in knowing. Okay, Real Madrid so bad, haha. You laugh at them, Lolo. Imagine drawing to Girona. You continue laughing at them. Have you seen Oppenheimer? What's Oppenheimer? I watched the game. Okay, yeah. What are you talking about? I'm talking about football. In case you're wondering, friend. Pedri says so. Apparently, some players miss Ancelotti and his freedom he gave. And his freedom he gave to the players. Key players that are against Xabi Alonso include Fede Valverde, Jude Bellingham, but especially Vinicius Junior. The trio want Xabi out. This is according to Pedri, who is stationed there in Spain, but he is a Barcelona fan. So reading into the Real Madrid room and all the press that rotates around Real Madrid, he's trying to give us more insight. Riyadh, hi Riyadh says you say Uganda and put the Uganda flag. Thank you so much for joining us. Are you from Uganda? Or the name sounds what I don't want to say Saudi Arabian because the Saudi Arabia have a city called Riyadh, but it doesn't sound Ugandan. But thank you so much for joining us. Where are you from? That's the Russian gentleman asking. Gentleman or lady, I do not know. But you've been responded to. That's Uganda. Then, okay. Pedri adds on that Real Madrid's defense has been very bad in terms of coordination and focus. Their attack isn't as lethal. Mbappe is still awful. I think that's what you try to mean. I do not think Mbappe is awful. I think individually he's done really, really well. Then, contrary to your submission, in naming Valverde, Vinicius Jr., and including Judy Bellingham within that cohort, I don't know. Okay, contrary to what I have read about Judy Bellingham, is that apparently Judy Bellingham is one of the favorite players for Xabi Alonso, and that they have a good relationship. But for Vinicius Jr., I think that relationship is more or less broken, and not broken beyond repair to a point of no return that they cannot look in each other's direction or that they cannot speak to each other. But we've had of numerous clashes or exchanges between the manager. Translating goodbye to you. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. So we've had of that. So with Vinicius Jr. again, this started off back in the summer when we were hearing that he was still failing to reach personal terms on agreement on extending his contract with the Real Madrid ranks. And I remember the time Saudi Arabian clubs were offering to buy him and then let him stay with Real Madrid for another season. And then he joins them after. Of course, those rumors never, came to fruition, or those reports never saw the light of day in terms of being manifested, but we cannot wish it away. So now, according to Ndiakaila News, he says there's about 4 to 5 senior players who are against, Xabi Alonso. And again, we've spoken about the rules. Different managers come with different rules. I remember when Mikel Arteta joined Arsenal, he talked about his non-negotiables. And among them was timekeeping, being respectful to one another, and things like that. And for those of you that do remember, I think Pierre Aubameyang, his relationship with Mikel Arteta broke because of failing to keep time. Of course, there was that particular incident when I think he was allowed to fly to France. Was it France? To see his mother was ill and something like that. But again, he did not report. He did not report back on the day he was expected to report back. So he came for training the following morning, and they told him, "Now you're going to train with the reserves, away from the main squad," and we know how that eventually ended. So things like that. So Pedri adds on to say, "It's awful having three big players that all want to be the star of the show. Remember Messi when everyone just wanted to pass to him, but now we are playing as a team. Very young. Rio has too many stars." I think I would agree with that. Kylian Mbappe, Vinicius Jr., Jude Bellingham. These are big players with big egos who think they have it all it takes. They want to win the Ballon d'Or. They think each of them should be the star of the team, the talisman of the team. And I remember making the case that he is going to have to deal with those egos. And we've seen all the reports that surrounded Rodrigo Goes during the the preseason. And Rodrigo Goes has got 30 games without scoring or providing an assist. That's the longest spell for a Real Madrid attacker to be in action and not be involved in a goal, and it's looking poor, really, really poor. And in any case, I do not think that has helped Real Madrid. By the time we come around the corner, if Real Madrid ever come to it to sell Rodrigo Goes, trust me, his valuation is going to be significantly low given that bad spell or that run of performances. But let's park that on the side. So Fede Valverde, we know he's been there for quite some time. Today I was reading reports linking him with the potential move to Real Madrid. Apparently, Real Madrid will be slapping an 80 million euro price tag on his name. Should they be willing to entertain bids? Although that's still speculation. It's I refer to it as speculation because it's premised upon the fact that United are looking for a midfielder, you know, and among other things. Yes, the interest could be there, but like the other day or some time back, we spoke about that interest for Man United for a central midfielder, and we spoke about three other names in Elliot Anderson, Carlos Baleba, and Adam Watton at Crystal Palace. So really, I will have to wait and see. But yeah, managing big players, such big players with big egos is always going to be an issue. There's always going to be an unhappy character. And Carlo Ancelotti, as he is often referred to as the dad of players because he treats players as their sons and things like that. He tends to he's a laissez-faire guy. He's so much of a freedom guy, you know. He lets I don't know if it's the right word to use to let players be, but he's not overly strict, you know. I think he's so much of a diplomat. You know, he likes to go about things in a diplomatic way, and he's just totally different, you know, from the managers out there. And in sharp contrast, this has come with one Pep Guardiola students and young managers. Again, you'll find that most of them have a connection with Pep Guardiola in regards to their strictness. Of course, not all of them, but you'll see Arteta, same style. Xabi Alonso, you remember he played under Pep Guardiola at Bayern Munich between 2014 and 2016 when, you know, Pep Guardiola was there. Excuse me. Then you look at, and because they've recently retired or haven't been managing for so many years, there are players that are bound to look down on them, you know. Same thing happened for Andre Villas-Boas when he left FC Porto and joined Chelsea. Back then, you still had senior players within that dressing room who were older than him at the time, who looked down upon him, and things like that. And eventually, it did not work out for him. The same thing happened to David Moyes when he went to Manchester United. You still had senior players within that dressing room that looked down on David Moyes. They did not believe he was the right man for the job. And one of the reasons for me why eventually David Moyes could not make it out at Manchester United was largely because of those senior players. You know, they literally ganged up against him because they did not believe in his ways. They were so much accustomed to the Ferguson era that anything new was bound to throw them off, especially anything new in the ranks of David Moyes. Okay. Friend says that he wanted to buy him. Sounds crazy. What does a person cost nowadays? Wow. Friend seems so clueless about transfer business, but it's trading players, you know. Anyways, Pedri says Aubameyang in the current Arsenal would be more effective than Gyökeres. That I do agree with, or I'd contend with. The only manager that can control such big stars is Zinedine Zidane. Zizou, Rodrigo at Barcelona would be a perfect match. Well, I do not know if Real Madrid are ready to do business with Barcelona, but I understand your fantasies and fallacies when it comes to having a player like Rodrigo Goes. He is such a talent, you know, and it's quite almost unthinkable what's happening to his form or his football lately. I wish he comes. He comes. We will play him in his favorite position. You also add on. Okay, let's reflect back on Zinedine Zidane. Again, Zinedine Zidane took over first at Real Madrid when Carlo Ancelotti, you know, left the club, and a lot of people were questioning whether he would manage that dressing room, because you still had Karim Benzema, Cristiano Ronaldo was still around, and so many other big name players. So there are some questions there whether he could really actually handle them, really. And I think he did really, really well, because the first spell was from January 2016 to 2018. That's a period of about 16, 17, 18, 2.5 seasons, thereabout. And during that spell is when he wins the 3 consecutive UEFA Champions League titles. And then he returned in March 2019. I think March 2019, that was following, was that after the sacking of Julian Lopetegui, who had left the who had left the Spanish national team prior to the start of the World Cup that was in Russia to take over the role at Real Madrid, So, and then during that time, he won them the La Liga title. That was 2019-2020. So before he sort of hung up the boots. But of course, he had had a stint with the the reserve team at Castilla. Now, he proved really worthy when it came to managing those big players. Gareth Bale was still among the cohort of those players at the time, and I think he managed them really, really well. He tactically, I do not know. I do not want to even suggest how good he was, but he managed that dressing room so well that it made him look so impressive, even tactically. I do not think there's so much of a philosophy that you can remember him for. While in his days at Real Madrid, all they did was, good players playing good football and winning games. They did just that, and winning the UEFA Champions League for 3 consecutive times. That was no joke. That was no joke, really. So he was that kind of manager, and I do not think he would have any struggles whatsoever managing that dressing room. And we're talking about a manager who has played there before, who has managed there before and won titles. Of course, Xabi Alonso also played there before, so they too share the same advantage. But I think Zidane had picked so many lessons from Carlo Ancelotti in terms of how he managed those players and how he went about with dealing their personal egos, as individuals. So, okay. Pedri adds on, he adds on, I remember an article that quoted Ancelotti before Arsenal match last year, away first leg, when he said to players, just do what you want, play a pass when you think it's right, try to win. Again, he's the kind of manager who, of course, he has his tactics and how he wants to go about games, but he's not the kind of manager who will coach talent into limiting to its own capabilities. For example, you've had such a thing as modern day players are overly coached. Why? Because players are playing so much in structure than with freedom. I'll give you an example. And Pep Guardiola, I want to believe he's one of the masters of that. The only player or the only players he is given much freedom to do as they please was Lionel Messi. He gave Lionel Messi to do as he pleased. All the rest, it was about the structure. Thierry Henry speaks about this just as much. It's about how the team plays, not you, the individual. And I do not remember exactly, but he does make reference to a game where he played, he scored in the first half and he was withdrawn. Why? Because he did not play the way the team was supposed to play. So we all know what Thierry Henry's capabilities were as an individual. Outside the locker room of the team, we knew what his qualities were as an individual. So Pep Guardiola is the kind of manager that overly coaches players into a certain structure. Now, a lot of players thrive within that structure, but naturally, if you give them the freedom, there's more that you could see from those players. And I want to believe that the other player he gave that bit of freedom at Manchester City was David Silva. I think he gave him that freedom to do as he pleased. And then Kevin De Bruyne had a bit of leeway of how he went about his business in as far as playing in that kind of team, goes. Okay. Pedri says, I would say this to my player soon. Sorry, to my players only if we were winning 6-0. I'm sorry, but I think Ancelotti has been so lucky to have many stars he managed. He added nothing new to football I feel like everyone overrates him only because of his many trophies. But he is boring. Well, you will think he's boring. That is your prerogative. That is your opinion, and I'll respect it. But one, I, for one, do not share the same school of thought that he is boring. Two, I do believe he's a very, very capable manager and a winner. He's a proven winner. That is without a doubt. My only reservations about Carlo Ancelotti have always been with the pursuit for glory in terms of a league title. He's always not come off as the manager that you bring in to win for you a league title if you desperately need one. He's never sort of come off as that kind of manager. But when it comes to the cup competitions, particularly the UEFA Champions League, there's reason as to why he's one of the most successful managers that there is in that competition. Of course, you need good players to win big silverware. When you go back to, I think, 2009, 2010, when Chelsea win the Premier League title, he was in charge of that team and they scored so many goals, and he really, really managed that team really, really well. Of course, in terms of the UEFA Champions League, they did not hit the heights they would have hoped for, but they won the league. He's been to PSG, he's been to Bayern Munich, he's been to, of course, Napoli, he's been to Everton, he's been to Real Madrid twice. He's now with the Brazilian national team. All that is, he's been at AC Milan. I remember at AC Milan, they lost the 2005 Champions League title, and he came back and won it with them in 2007 when they beat up against Liverpool by 2-1. So he's managed a lot of great talent, but he's been able to manage a lot of great talent because he's been managing very, very big teams. It's that simple. Okay. Hi, Robert. How are you doing? I'm good. Thanks for asking. Some is it Some? Apologies if I mispronounce your name. So Pedro, for me, I'll differ with you on that. And I understand your criticism of the statement in itself to say that you would only make that statement that you. Oh, now Robert K. Sarkos. I don't know. I wish there was a way of you to educate me on how you pronounce your name. Oh, SD. Yes. Okay, yes, we agreed that we should refer to it as SD. Apologies once again. So Pedri, just to get back to it with you, I was saying that I understand your reservations in a manager telling his team to play that way. But like I said, he's managed a lot of talent, and he knows that part of his success is letting that talent be. And I also remember, and this was said by Jose Mourinho. And by the way, Jose Mourinho is not a manager that overcoaches players. He's a manager that massages players' egos. But also, he's a manager who limited players' freedoms. He did not treat himself as the kind of manager that loved that natural talent a lot. These players that, get the ball and want to dribble past three players before giving it away. He did not, he did not brand himself as that kind of manager. He branded himself as the kind of manager who gets a group of players to play as a team through hard work, through structure, being defensively solid, but a lot of it being hard work, being sort of molded into the sun, being molded into glass, or transforming this raw material into that hard metal of steel in a way. So that's the kind of manager Jose Mourinho was. Present day, I do contend, I myself, that Mikel Arteta is one of those managers that overly coaches his players. And I understand why they do it, but I also feel that there is need to give some players room to exercise their natural talent for us to be able to see them flourish. Because these kinds of managers that overcoach players are the kind of managers that are obsessed with every little detail of the game, that they do not want you to lose the ball. And if they do not want you to lose the ball, the best decision is to pass it to your next teammate. Whereas naturally, a player with capabilities is saying, I can dribble past this guy and the next one. And if I fail on this attempt, I'll do it again and again and again until I get it right. So they do not have that luxury. And Cesc Fabregas was speaking about this not too far back, and he said, "Yeah, players today, modern day players are overly coached. They're not given the room to use their natural intelligence, to say because he spoke about his role as a midfielder and how he was nurtured by Arsene Wenger. Arsene Wenger was that kind of manager, similar to the likes of Carlo Ancelotti, who did not tell you um, every little detail. They told you, go and be you, go and play your game, because after setting up the basic structure of the game and assembling the right talent, they sent you to go and get the job done. Alex Oxlade-Chamberlain was speaking about the difference between his life at Arsenal and his first 3 months with Liverpool. And he spoke about how hard they trained at Liverpool in comparison to Arsenal, and things like that. Then he also spoke about the video analysis part of the game, and he said, whereas it was a thing, for Arsene Wenger, it was not really a thing. All he told his players expect this player to make this movement, expect this player to do this. So go about this way, and it was that. Until Mikel Arteta forced his hand, and he said, when you make reference to this, I want to see it on TV, on screen, and that's when they started doing it. So Carlo Ancelotti is in that sort of mold. Okay, I'm going to get through all your comments, but let me first wrap up with with Pedro here says, I think he gave Sergio Kun Aguero a freedom as well. Maybe, yeah, I could agree with that. Because again, I think in that giving Sergio Kun Aguero, it was him adapting to the fact that Aguero was a natural striker, be the target man there, wait for the ball to be brought to you, and go on and score goals. Pretty much the same way he's adapted to a player like Brad Erling Haaland. He's adapted the team's game to Brad Erling Haaland's style. But otherwise, he would prefer to play with the false nine who gets as much involved as possible. That's why he had a player like Julian Alvarez. That's why he had a player like Gabriel Jesus. Okay. SD says, hi Robert, how are you doing? I'm good, my brother. Just struggling with a bit of a cold. So please indulge you with me. If you hear me sniffing a bit, it's because I have a flu with me. Okay. Pedro says, look what he did at Everton. He did nothing. Well, I do not think he did nothing. He was still wrong with that Everton team that had been struggling for ages. And that's when Real Madrid came calling, and he unfortunately left again. So, SD Robert Lewandowski, nah, Robert Kisaka, it's SD. Okay, I prefer Robert Lewandowski. Pedri, that wouldn't be you saying you prefer Robert Lewandowski for a player that you gave a lot of stick a couple of weeks ago. Then Mosigwa Joshua says, Mosigwa Joshua 2406 says, don't you think most of the managers being produced lately are for that school of thought, the kind that overly coaches players? Yeah, I do agree with you. There's a lot of managers in modern day football that are like that. And like I said, Mikel Arteta is one of those. Pep Guardiola, who is the oldest of that sort of cohort. When you look at Xabi Alonso, when you look at Enzo Maresca, when you look at Ruben Amorim, when you look at, I think, I don't know, is Marcel Bielsa in that sort of realm in a way? Because he has an obsession with football based on the people that have spoken about him, But a lot of modern day coaches, have that element in them. They're overly coaching teams or overly coaching players. And that's why at the top level, we're struggling to see the individual brilliancy of players. I'll give you an example. When you go back over the years, at Chelsea you had players like Juan Manuel Mata, players like Eden Hazard, players that could really, really express themselves, and by that expression, it's really, really going about the game your natural way, as opposed to having every bit of it structured. You remember that goal he scores against Arsenal when he dribbles past Loic Koscielny. I think the other player was Francis Coquelin. There was also another player involved, whose name eludes me. So You want to see that. The things, yes, the things you see Lamine Yamal do present day, the things you've seen Lionel Messi do, the things you've seen His Excellency Kakadu at AC Milan, the things you used to see Ronaldinho do, you no longer see a lot of that or enough of that at the top level. You no longer see enough of that. You look at again, look at Cristiano Ronaldo. You remember when he was still doing the stepovers and all that. But for Cristiano Ronaldo, what's a bit different is that as he went on growing, he knew that his pace was going down and sort of continued to adapt his game or adjust his game. But you see a player like Giovanni Quenda at Sporting CP, the way you see how the likes of Alejandro Garnacho, Jamie Gittens, the way you see William Estaval, the way they want to go about their game, the way you see players like Ebeleche Eze, those players that want to self-express on the pitch, with how well with their own confidence in their own abilities, But when they get to these teams that are overly coached, you sort of start losing that element, You start losing that element because they're now playing everything that is structured. And that's why when they are at mid-table teams or lower-table teams, they get to do the things that they love to do. And yet when they come to big teams, they do not do those. Do you know why? Because in those lower teams, one, they are oftentimes the stars of the team. So they take it as their own responsibility, their sole responsibility to sort of lead this team forward. And then when they come to bigger teams, one, they're no longer the star of the team. They're either in a collection of stars or there's so many other stars within the team. So whatever you think you're smart, you're good at, and I mean, we don't do that here. This is how we play our game here. And as you get those snippets from your fellow teammates, your manager, your new coach, your new manager is also telling you to play a certain way. Excuse me. So really, you have a lot of that, You have a lot of that with modern day managers. So you like my tissue? No, it's a hanky. It's not a tissue. It's a hanky. There's two of them. I don't prefer to use tissue, but I also have some napkins here for emergencies. But I prefer hankies. So I do agree with you on that. Okay. Okay. Pedri said, don't you think most of the managers being produced lately are for that school of thought? You repeated his comment. Are we really in the title race? Milos, our wingers are too weak for us to win anything, brother. Milo, 920. What team do you support? Are you a Chelsea fan? Because when you mention about your wingers being too weak, you sound like a Chelsea fan. But in case, please correct me if I'm wrong before I respond to that question. Otherwise, I may end up responding to it in the wrong context. Are you a Chelsea fan? What team do you support? They're asking you, Milo, to elucidate on that. He's a Liverpool fan. He's yet to respond. Masuba said, yes, I believe Bielsa is. Yeah, Marcel Bielsa was obsessed with the game. Before I knew that it was a health condition, I used to wonder why he used to pace around his manager's box when he was still at Atletico Bilbao. That team around 2011, 2012 that beat up against Man United, home and away in the UEFA Europa League when United dropped to the UEFA Europa League. Then okay, Mwesgwa says thanks. Think Sam has affected Martinelli in a way no longer innovative like he used to be when he had just signed for the Arsenal. Because these players have been told to play within a certain structure, and because what traditional managers used to do and I use the word traditional to reference to previous times, is that one, they sort of played the game more like basketball in a way that when we lose the ball, the other team sort of takes advantage and we retreat back until we win it back, and then we go again through our most, athletic players. We have this decent passer of the ball in our midfield, usually the number 8 that puts it in the channel for the 7, the 11. Usually it was the 7s and the 11s and the 10s who had those dribbling skills to, put a couple of bodies away, and then they go on to create a chance or even score. What now you have is that because the game is structured, I'll give you an example. Yesterday, Bukayo Saka provided an assist for that Mikel Merino equalizer against Chelsea. But also Bukayo Saka's poor decision-making could be reason as to why Arsenal did not get all 3 points, because he tried to be that traditional player, trying to take responsibility, trying to take matters in his own hands, and he sort of lost a bit of his way in terms of proper judgment. But, for example, when those players go into the attack, usually you'll find a winger is being followed by one of the left back. So let's take the example of Gabriel Martinelli. If Gabriel Martinelli is moving upwards, oftentimes now, and I've always made this argument about Arsenal's left wing. Rarely do you see their fullback overlapping when it's Martinelli playing. If you remember against Bayern Munich, Carafiori did the overlap, but ordinarily they've not been making that. So the fullback comes up, and then you have also the number 8. So what this winger is being told to do, either pass it back to the left back or go for the number 8. Or if they're not forming that triangle, they're forming a rectangle with the number 10 pulling closer, So in this particular case, if you're Martinelli, you either have the option of Eberechi Eze, Declan Rice, and Ricardo Carafiori. If it's not Carafiori in that role, you're going to have Rice, Eze, and, maybe, and yourself, So they are playing in that structure. Then when it goes to the opposite wing, it still happens the same way. You've seen Saka, Martin Odegaard, and Julian Timber or Ben White, whichever they play with. They go on forming those small snippets of shapes, either triangles or rectangles or octagons, depending on how the game has been structured for them. To keep passing the ball around, knock it around. In that sort of sense, as opposed to saying, okay, I'm making a run, I have 2 players in front of me, I believe I can take them on. Oftentimes they will take on one player and then look to, of course, pass the ball. So that individual brilliancy is no longer coming out at the very top in the cream of it. That's why we no longer get to perhaps enjoy the game that much the way we used to enjoy it under the likes of Ronaldinho. Hi, LFC. Good to have you back on the broadcast. Okay, let's get back to some of your other comments. Pedri says, you said he's a Liverpool fan. You said can't tell. Milos said he's a Chelsea fan. Okay, good. Let's look at Chelsea's wingers. Chelsea have Jamie Gittens, Alejandro Garnacho, William Estaval, Pedro Neto, among their cohort of wingers. And if I've missed anybody, let me know, because Sarek George is not a winger, Kopama is not. But first of all, Jamie Gittens, Alejandro Garnacho, and William Estaval, they're all young players. They can impact a game, but they sometimes get ahead of themselves. In other words, their decision-making is yet to mature. Sometimes that's why today you'll be very happy with them, tomorrow you may not be. And it won't be because they've entirely had a bad game. It's because of the kind of decisions they've made in certain positions, And to retreat back to your question, you are saying, are we really in the title race? In my opinion, Chelsea are in the title race, full-blown title race. And the reason for that has nothing to do with the quality or the age of their wingers. The reason as to why, for me, I believe they are in the title race is particularly because There's a number of factors, of course, and we did discuss this, I think, in the morning, for those of you that were part of the broadcast. But for those of you that weren't, we'll repeat it for you, although not in the similar fashion. You can go back to the channel and watch a broadcast that was came earlier on in the morning. So, but you cannot be a team of Chelsea's caliber by European standards. You have 2 UEFA Champions League titles. You have how many? I think about what? 5 Premier League titles, 3 under Jose Mourinho, another under Antonio Conte, and 1 under Carlo Ancelotti. So 5. You cannot have 2 UEFA Europa League titles in 2013 under Rafa Benitez Maudes and in 2018 under Maurizio Sarri when you beat up against Arsenal in Azerbaijan, in Baku. That was 2019, actually, not 2018, 2019. Then last season you won the Conference League, and then you're the reigning champions of the FIFA Club World Cup, the inaugural edition of the new format. And you tell me that Chelsea is not in the title race. By their own standard of tradition, puts them in the title race or expects them to be in the title race. Now, above the expectation that comes with the tradition or the pedigree is you look at how they've been spending, their spending patterns over the last 3 years. You do not spend £2 billion on players to not be in the title race. You spend that money to be in a title race. Now, of course, the debate comes also to the manager. What kind of manager do you have? Yes, we can make the argument that Enzo Maresca is only in his second season. Again, any manager, whether it is your first time managing a particular team or it's your first job in management, when you're given the squad that is as expensive as that Chelsea squad, you're expected to win silverware. You're expected to be in the title race. You're expected to challenge the big boys for the title. Let's review. Look at their midfield. Enzo Fernandez, 120 million euros. I think 121. Moises Caicedo, 115 million pounds from Brighton. Look at Cole Palmer, 45 million pounds from Manchester City. Look at Dario Esugo. I think he costs about what? Only 18. I think 18.4 from Sporting CP. He was at Las Palmas, of course, before joining Chelsea. Look at Andre Santos. Look at Romeo Lavia, a 50 million pound player from Southampton. You look at Wesley Fofana, cost them about in the region of 70 to 70 million pounds from Leicester City as a defender. You look at Liam Delap. Of course, buyout clause was only 30 million pounds. You look at Joao Pedro, 60 million pounds. You look at Jamie Gittins, how much they spent on him. You look at Arnaldo Garnacho. You look at Pedro Neto, almost 60 million pounds that was spent on him. So you do not assemble that kind of quality at that kind of cost for you to say, now we're not title contenders because our manager is only in the second season or because our players are young. No. You do not make that argument. For example, there's no day. I do not think there's a day Barcelona told themselves we are not in the title race just because they had been struggling financially and they had to rely on players from the academy. Even when that was still the case, they tasked their managers to win something. Okay, even if you did not win, and the reasons for that were as glaring as they come, you still were expected to compete, to be a title contender. You're not expected to finish 8th. Of course, at some point, it was that bad for Barcelona, but they bounced back, and they quickly did that. So that expectation is really there, Okay, I'm going to go through now. Yes, to say that Chelsea is not good enough is in comparison with other teams, and let's get this straight. For example, look at Chelsea's backline. How many players in that Chelsea backline would you pick to start in those other teams for whom you think they're title contenders? Whether it's Arsenal, whether it's Man City, Liverpool, forget their recent form, Liverpool. So You look at Robert Sanchez, the goalkeeper. I do not think he would start for Liverpool, nor would he start for Arsenal, nor Man City. And he is a good goalkeeper by his own standards. And I'm really, really happy for him that in recent times he's been more consistent. In fact, this season he's kept 6 clean sheets out of the 13 games. Actually, not 13 games because he missed a game through a red card. You remember when he got that red card against Manchester United. So, but, and he's sort of improved. Now, Rachel James, when you play him at right back, very, very good player. And even when you played him in midfield, he was still very decent. But as a right back, for me, top player. He could start in any of those teams. Marco Correa, arguably one of the best left backs there is in the Premier League. Now, Wesley Fofana and Levi Colwill, that would compete favorably with the centre backs of these other teams, have been quite inconsistent, just simply through injuries. But we know that the talent is there for Wesley Fofana and Levi Colwill. They're some of the best defenders that is in the Premier League. So now, the question when it came to Chelsea was not about that core starting 11 in terms of their backline. It came to do with depth. That you've seen that in the absence of Levi Colwill, Chelsea have had to tinker so much with that backline. We've seen Joshua Achepong play there. We've seen Bernard Badiashile. We've seen Tosin Aderabio. We've seen at one point, I think Rachel James was played there. So we've seen all that mix and match just to try and find that balance so that the team keeps moving. So when you lose your most trusted defenders, do you have the decent backup? That's where questions arose from in terms of Chelsea's capability. When you look at their midfield, for me, from the middle of the park going forward, Chelsea are one of the best teams there is in the Premier League, without a doubt. When you look at their midfield, whether it's Caicedo, Enzo, and Cole Palmer, whether it's Caicedo, Andre Santos, Enzo, whether it's Caicedo, Rachel James, Enzo Fernandez, whether it's Romeo Lavia, Caicedo, Enzo Fernandez, whatever the combination is in that Chelsea midfield, they have one of the best midfields in the Premier League, if not the very best. And we're talking about a cohort of players, one that are Premier League proven in terms of having been there, because let's be honest, they've been at Chelsea for quite some time, and some of them did come right out of the Premier League. Romeo Lavia from Southampton, Caicedo from Brighton. So their adaptability or their adaptation was quite easy. The one you would sort of maybe wink your eye for would be Andre Santos, because he joined Chelsea and was sent out on loan to Strasbourg, where he did tremendously well that he had to be brought back in. Enzo Fernandez signed in January 2023. He's been there for a good amount of time. He's well adapted now. He's a much improved player than the player we saw in the first 18 months, where Chelsea were also chopping and hoping with managers, and that kind of thing. So they're very, very strong in midfield. When it comes to their attack, Pedro Neto, Joao Pedro, Liam Delap, Jamie Gittens, William Estaval, Alejandro Garnacho, on paper, they're very, very good players. Their challenge, though, has been that lack of consistency with performances. But the beauty with it for Chelsea is that they have so many goal scorers. That's why they're not overly reliant on a single player. And while we mention all that, there's a Cole Palmer who has been absent through injury, and yet Chelsea have not suffered that much, even without him, even though we know that he is one of Chelsea's star players, if not a marksman, for that Chelsea team. We've seen him carry Chelsea on his shoulders for the last 2 campaigns. We've been able to see that. So really, so really, when you look at all those aspects in that Chelsea team, you'll certainly agree why they are title contenders, in my opinion. Really, they should be title contenders. And I keep saying, the mere fact that they won those 2 titles, the UEFA Conference League and the FIFA Club World Cup, that is what gives them the belief that this team is capable. For you you must retain that winning culture. You must have that belief that we are capable. Okay. Amilo says, love brother, I have to hop off. A nice stream. Thank you so much. And Newcastle has better front 3 than us. Again, do not look at it in comparison of just the starting front 3. Look at it in the context of your squad depth. Yes, if Newcastle have Nick Voltmada, Harvey Barnes, and Anthony Gordon, When it comes to withdrawing Nick Voltmada, who comes on? Johan Wis has been out injured ever since the season started. They have William Osula. Is he as good as Liam Delap or Joao Pedro if you swap the two? No. They do have Anthony Elanga. So you make the comparison in the larger context of the squad depth of the team. Because if you're only reliant on your first starting team, you can't lose players through injury. And part of the troubles that Liverpool have been having is some players have been off form, others have been out injured, in and out of the team. Anyways, let me first retreat back to some of your earlier comments and then we can have continue with the discussion so that I do not lose all of your submissions. Okay. Pedro was asking Joshua, what do you think of Rafinha? Personally, I think he's a very, very good player. Wouldn't have been surprised if he had won the Ballon d'Or last year, although Barcelona chose to prop Lamine Yamal in terms of media. I like your tissue. We read that. Martinelli, okay, we read that. He's a Liverpool fan. We went through that. Have you seen him against Arsenal? Okay. Pedri said, Estavao is world class. Be grateful. Neto is so good. Be grateful. Have you seen him against Arsenal? Yes, Estavao wasn't that good. He did not have a good day in office, but it happens. He's only 18 years of age. Let's cut him some slack. Estavao cooked us. He cooked Barcelona. That's true. Are you from Hungary? That was a question for Minos. Is Estavao good enough right now for us to win the league? No, not this year, brother. Also, a striker is needed. Delap ain't it? We are not good enough to win the league. You say you're from Serbia. Now, again, Liam Delap. The season had only just started, and then he suffered that, was it a hamstring injury that kept him out for a period of 6 weeks? He's only returning. Guys, I do not want to say Liam Delap is incapable until over a period of time, because it's easy for a player who is yet to gain their confidence. It's easy for us to critique those kinds of players. And let's not forget, he's come from Ipswich. He's come to Chelsea. It's a different ballpark of a level. That upgrade in itself is a shock for most players. Some of them are not starstruck, but they get that stage fright of being at a big team. The expectations at Chelsea are miles ahead of what the expectations of him were at Ipswich Town. So let's be cognizant of that to not quickly judge him that he's doomed already. I thought Milos Kakis. I see what you did there, Pedri. Pedri went on to say, okay. Do you think Chelsea are good enough to end number one in the Premier League? They are capable of it. You see, the thing about winning a league title is about the consistency over the 38 games. And also, it's not, I've made this argument before. Winning a league title is not just about how good you are or bad you are or your consistency. It's not just about that. Those are factors, good factors to have, But a lot of it has to do with who you're competing for the league title with or against. It has to do with that. It has to do with the element of officiation of the game. Sometimes you're going to get away with bad decisions in your favor. Sometimes those bad decisions of the referees are going to cost you points, So it all starts with you, one, building a good team. Of course, there are outliers where their starting 11 was it all and they did not suffer so many injuries. They went on to win the league title. Case in point, Liverpool, another case in point, Leicester City in 2016, But one, you have to have a very good squad. Within that good squad, you have a spine of the team, the core members of your team that are going to be winning you games, that dictate the tempo of your game, that decide how you win games, that decide how you recover from games. You have that. Of course, the good manager is the other factor. But for everything that you do right, trust me, you must be hoping that your competitors falter at some point. Because if we are all winning our games, then at the end of the day, it will then boil down to who scored the more goals or who has the better goal difference, who defended better, you know. So again, look back to last season. Liverpool won the trophy with a tally of 84 points. Now, do you remember that in the 2023-2024 season, which was Jurgen Klopp's last season at Liverpool, they had finished third with 84 points. Sorry, with 82 points. That means Arne Slot added just 2 points to Jurgen Klopp's tally of the 2023-2024 campaign for him to win the league title in the 2024-2025 campaign. Now, that tally of points 2 seasons prior would have not won you any point, would have not won you a title. In the 2023-2024 season, Arsenal finished second with 85 points. That means with Liverpool points of last season, they still wouldn't win a title. They wouldn't even finish above Arsenal. You know? So, when you go back to the 2022-2023 campaign, when Arsenal finished with 80, I think they finished with the, was it 84? Sorry, actually, they finished with 85 points. Yes, that's the season with Man City at 89. Now, the subsequent season, they finished with 89 points. So, a lot of those points would have not won Liverpool the title the other years. Go back to 2021-2022 season. I think Liverpool, the Premier League season of 2021-2022, that season, Liverpool finished with a tally of 92 points, with Manchester City winning the championship with just a point further at 93 points. 92 points, you do not have a league title. At 84, you have won a league title. Go back in the last 10 years and find how many teams have won a league title with as fewer points as 84. There's not going to be more than 2. Trust me. It's not going to be more than 2 teams. You know? So really, look at it also in that perspective. Then, okay. LFC said, okay, LFC, Lewandowski, not JP. Yes, Robert, I'm back. Good. Can't stay. Have to get a shower. Bad weather at training. Okay, LFC, we understand that the decision making is sometimes rushed. Yes, my brother, you were agreeing with me on my submission of the Chelsea wingers. Pedri said, LFC, how do you feel after you win against West Ham? I think he ran away before responding to that, but it was a very, very valuable result for Liverpool. They really, really needed that. Pedri came back to say, Slot out, Klopp in. He was asking the question. Well, Arne Slot still has some days. He's yet to be put on this. He said he's yet to be put on the spike. Milos says, my argument is that we are not good enough, great in big games, not consistent enough to win the small ones. Yes, so the lack of inconsistency could turn out to be Chelsea's undoing. But again, we're also talking about a team that are unbeaten in the last 9 games, winning 5 and drawing 4. So that in itself is not a bad record. If you've beaten up against teams like Barcelona along that path, you know, really. So, but I sort of do understand where you're coming from. Pedri did ask, did you see Kukorea rapping well? Go band for band by Eminem. Mr. Tribe, please watch it. Give us a reaction on stream. I will tell 40 people to subscribe. I will try and look out for that video if I do land on it. Okay, Milo says midfield, yes. Going forward, no. Front 3 is the worst out of the top 4. I didn't say it was the best. I did say it was good. And the advantage for Chelsea has been that even though it's that front 3 has been inconsistent, the depth they have in squad for their front players is what allows them to keep moving. And you need that. You really, really need that. Of course, it's not going to be as consistent as maybe we've seen the front 3 of the likes of Liverpool over the years. You look at Manchester City, for the first 11 games of the season or 12, they were being carried on the shoulders of Brad Erling Haaland. When it came to the Leeds game, it was Phil Foden who won it for them, really. So you need that variation sometimes. But okay. All right. Milo said Newcastle had a better front three. Okay, that's his view. Okay, and then he signed out. Wally, is it Wally Winker? Winker says hello Winker. Good to have you on the stream. Hi. You strike me as a man who can get enthusiastic about Malede, perhaps some preserves, but not all of them. I am right, and I don't know what you're making reference to there, Winker. I'm not particularly sure what you're making reference to when you say Mama Lady. I don't even know what that is. Kindly correct me if I'm missing out on something here, my brother. But I thank you so much for joining the stream. Kindly like the stream, but also consider subscribing to the channel. I think that it is your first time seeing you here on these streets. But guys, okay, you say I'm referring to toast spreads. Mama Lady is made of oranges. Oh, is it like a jelly or peanut butter something or zesta? Is it something like that? Is it? I hope it is. Anyways, so guys, you say I think I have overstepped the intellectual line in the sand. Have a good day. Winker. I mean, it's a football channel. I don't know if the matter was regarding football, then I'll be able to give my view on that. But it doesn't appear to be the case. I don't know what country you're from. Unfortunately, you've not shared with us because bear in mind the societal context within which you may trade. You may be making reference to something that is sort of traditional or cultural or something very common within your own boundaries or region, and yet it's quite alien to me. So apologies if I'm falling short there. Anyways, quickly, today's games. Sorry, I'm trying to find. Yes, Rayo Vallecano and Valencia. That game is 1-1 as we speak. It's in the 70th minute. Bologna at 3-1 down against Cremonese. Birmingham City at 2-1 up against Watford. That game is equally in the 70th minute. That's some of the action ongoing. Like I told you guys in the morning, there's midweek action in as far as the Premier League is concerned. So do not miss out into tomorrow's games, Wednesday, and of course on Thursday. Man United will be in action on Thursday against West Ham United. They will be at home, and then. But tomorrow, Bournemouth at 10:30 p.m. Will be at home against Everton. Fulham will be at home against Manchester City, while at 11:15 p.m. and Newcastle will be up against Tottenham Hotspur. So we'll be here in the morning to look at those games, provided my health doesn't further deteriorate, because this cold flu is not treating me really well. Then on Wednesday, Arsenal will be up against Brentford. Brighton will take on Aston Villa. Burnley will be up against Crystal Palace. Wolverhampton Wanderers will take on Nottingham Forest, with all those games kicking off at 10:30 p.m. While at 11:15 p.m., Leeds United will entertain Chelsea, while Liverpool will be taking on Sunderland. So that's what's to come in your way in midweek this week, in as far as the Premier League is concerned, as it does enter match day 14. Otherwise, it's been a pleasure doing this with you. Thank you so much, Wale Winker. Thank you so much, Pedri. Thank you so much, Milos. Thank you so much, LFC. Thank you so much, Mwesigwa. Mwesigwa Joshua, 2406. Thank you so much. SD, thank you so much for making for being part of today's broadcast. Thank you so much, friend. Thank you so much, Pedri, for making the discussion worthwhile, and our colleague earlier on from Russia, whose name I could not pronounce. Thank you so much for all making the discussion worthwhile. Stay blessed and have a wonderful night ahead. And let's catch up tomorrow morning at 9 a.m. East African time, if my health does permit me. If you do not see me tomorrow, blame it on the cold. But I'll endeavor to be here, provided all other factors are kept constant. That means power being available, because if power is not available, internet is not available. Those factors have to align. But yeah, it's been a pleasure doing this with you. Stay blessed and I'll see you guys tomorrow. Bye-bye for now.